Right now, you believe you are reading this sentence. You believe you chose to click on this video. You believe that somewhere inside your head there is a you, a conscious thinking self, making decisions, forming opinions, directing your life. That belief is almost certainly wrong. And the most unsettling part is not that you're being controlled, it's that your brain is actively hiding it from you. Let's go back to 1983. A neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet wires up a volunteer's brain and asks them to do something simple: flex their wrist whenever they feel like it. At the same time, they watch a clock and note exactly when they decided to move. The results should be straightforward. You decide. You move. Simple. But that's not what happens. Libet finds that the brain begins preparing the movement nearly half a second before the person consciously decides to do it. The signal to move fires first. The conscious decision comes after. Which means that what we call a decision, that clear, distinct moment when you feel yourself choose, is not the beginning of the action. It's the brain informing you of what it has already done. You are not the author. You are the narrator reading a story that's already been written. This was so disturbing to the scientific community that researchers spent decades trying to find the flaw in Libet's experiment. Some did find nuances, but the core finding has survived. Your conscious awareness lags behind your brain's activity by a measurable amount of time, consistently, reliably, across thousands of experiments. So who is making the decisions? To understand that, you need to understand what your brain is actually doing at any given moment. Because here is something that almost nobody thinks about. Your brain is running two completely separate systems simultaneously, and you only have access to one of them. The first system is slow, deliberate. It requires effort. It's what you use when you're solving a math problem, or reading a contract, or trying to remember someone's name. This is the system you think of as thinking. It's conscious, it's logical, and it's exhausting. Your brain can only sustain it for short periods before it starts looking for shortcuts. The second system is fast, automatic. It operates entirely beneath your awareness, and it is responsible for the overwhelming majority of everything you do, every single day. Psychologists call these System 1 and System 2, but those names make them sound too clean, too separate. The reality is stranger than that. Because System 1 is not just handling background tasks like breathing and blinking. It is making judgment calls. It is forming opinions. It is deciding whether you trust a person the moment you see their face, before you've heard a single word they've said. It is shaping your political views, your food preferences, your sense of humor, your moral instincts, all of it processed and decided before your conscious mind even knows the input arrived. And here's where it gets genuinely strange. Researchers have shown that you can manipulate a person's decisions with stimuli they never consciously perceive. In one study, participants were asked to evaluate job candidates. Before the evaluation, some participants were asked to hold a cup of hot coffee. Others held a cup of iced coffee. The participants who held the warm coffee rated the candidates as having warmer personalities. They were friendlier, more trustworthy, more competent. The temperature of a cup of coffee. That's all it took to change how one human being judged another human being's professional worth. And not one of those participants knew it was happening. If you had asked them afterward, did the coffee affect your judgment? They would have said no. Absolutely not. They would have given you their reasons, clear and logical, for why they rated the candidate the way they did. This is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. It's not just that your brain makes decisions without consulting your conscious self. It's that after it does, it invents explanations. It constructs a story, a completely convincing, internally coherent story, about why you chose what you chose, and then it feeds that story to your conscious mind, which believes it completely and calls it reasoning. Psychologists call this confabulation, and it doesn't only happen in extreme cases in people with brain damage or psychological disorders. It happens in all of us, all the time. We are storytelling machines. Our conscious minds are, in a sense, press secretaries, not for a president who made the decisions, but for a process so deep and automatic we can never truly see it. Think about a time you made a decision and felt absolutely certain about your reasons. A relationship you ended, a job you took, a person you immediately liked or disliked. You had reasons, real ones that felt true. But how much of that was genuine reflection? And how much was your brain handing you a script? There's a phenomenon researchers discovered in patients whose left and right brain hemispheres had been surgically disconnected. When the right hemisphere was shown an image and instructed to perform an action, the left hemisphere, the one that handles language and explanation, had no idea why the action was being taken. But it never said, "I don't know." Instead, it instantly, confidently invented a reason. Every single time. Without hesitation. Without any awareness that it was inventing anything at all. The scientists called this the interpreter, the part of the brain that insists on narrative, that cannot tolerate the absence of explanation. That will manufacture one rather than sit with the honest answer, which is, "I don't know why I did that." So here's what your daily life actually looks like. Beneath the surface. You wake up. Before you have fully opened your eyes, your brain has already begun scanning the environment, making predictions, running probability checks against your entire history of experience. It decides, based on thousands of unconscious calculations, roughly how you feel about the day ahead. You call this mood. You think it came from somewhere. It came from a process you will never directly observe. You see someone you haven't met before. In less than a tenth of a second, your brain has already assessed their trustworthiness, their status, whether they remind you of someone from your past, whether you find them attractive. You think you're still looking. You've already decided. You make a choice at lunch. You believe you weighed your options and chose based on what you wanted. But your choice was shaped by what you saw first, by the number of options available, by whether you were slightly cold, by a word someone used in conversation 20 minutes ago that you've already consciously forgotten. And through all of this and through every automated, unconscious calculation, your brain runs without your knowledge or consent. Your conscious mind walks alongside it and narrates. It takes credit. It calls everything a decision. It calls everything a choice. It constructs the story of a self that is in control, that has reasons, that is the author of its own life. Because the alternative is something your brain finds deeply threatening. The alternative is the awareness that you are, at least in part, a passenger. That much of what you call you, your preferences, your judgments, your choices, your sense of who you are, is being generated by a process beneath your access and beyond your control. Here's the question that researchers, philosophers, and neuroscientists have been wrestling with for decades. If the decision happens before the awareness, and the awareness constructs reasons after the fact, and those reasons are often fabricated, then in what sense are you ever truly choosing anything? There's no clean answer to that. Some scientists argue that the conscious mind still has a kind of veto power, that even if it doesn't initiate the action, it can interrupt it. Others argue that the distinction barely matters, because the system, taken as a whole, is still you. Your history, your values, your memories. All of it is stored in the very system that's running beneath your awareness. The autopilot was built by your life. But perhaps the most honest answer is simply this. You are not a single self making decisions. You are a coalition, a crowd of processes, most of which are invisible to each other. And the part of you reading these words right now, the part that feels most like you, is not the one driving. It is the one watching, and believing, and narrating. And it has been doing that your entire life without ever knowing.